Oh, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Monday to you all. Here in the virtual swamp, Mr. Shrek here, you there. Today's lesson titled, Let It Begin. Let what begin, you ask? Aha! The events of Lexington and Concord get launched today. So today's target question, what was the significance of the battles in Lexington and Concord? Let's go! Ladies and gentlemen, clocking in, hands are up and down. Previously in the swamp. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, psh. All right, previously in the swamp, folks. All right, you guys were actually delegates to the First Continental Congress. You were one of the very important 55 men who attended the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia in the month of September of 74. In the room where it happens, as they say, you guys were there coming together. All right, 13 colonies, actually 12 colonies coming together to stand up to Great Britain following the harsh and punitive intolerable acts. So here's some information at a glance for you guys. Continental Congress in September of 74, 55 delegates, they were nominated by their peers from all the colonies except Georgia. So no Georgia. Georgia's having Native American issues down in the South who are constantly raiding them and things like that. So they kind of rely on British protection. So they didn't want to be caught attending this meeting because it would be treasonous in nature. So no Georgia, but 55 delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies are all going to arrive in Philadelphia, a building known as Carpenter's Hall. The reason why Philadelphia, most likely because it was centrally located and easier, or the easiest for delegates from the 12 colonies that attended to get there. All right, but one of their purposes were to create a political body that represented American interests. So not Pennsylvania interests, not New Jersey interests, not Massachusetts interests, not Virginia or South Carolina interests, but American interests. So that really shows some unity that's beginning to take shape here in the colonies. But also they wanted to challenge British control in terms of they wanted to stand up for themselves because a lot of them were of the belief of if the king and parliament could do what they just did to Massachusetts following the Tea Party, well, what's stopping them from doing it to New York or Virginia or North Carolina, South Carolina, et cetera, et cetera. So they wanted to put their foot down and put up a united front, if you will. All right, back to the purpose, but again, represent common interests and challenge this British law of the intolerable acts, to call out the king, to call out parliament, let them know that that will not stand and they cannot just violate their rights like that. But understand, even though many people in the room are of the idea that they want independence and they want it now, understand that not everybody at the First Continental Congress has that opinion, right? So they're not there to declare independence, but just simply to put up a united front to stand up for themselves, to make sure what happened to Massachusetts never happens to them. But this meeting of 55 did not just star you on Friday because you were an active member at it, but look at the star-studded cast here. So we have Sam Adams, we have John Adams representing Massachusetts, we have John Jay from New York, a prominent lawyer, we have Richard Henry Lee, who will be super important at the Second Continental Congress, Patrick Henry from Virginia, very outspoken Virginian, who led the charge in getting the Stamp Act repealed. And then, of course, George Washington. So this is a real serious meeting because you got some big names. This is a who's cast, if you will. But I love this quote here by Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry. And he opens up the First Continental Congress by giving a speech. And in that speech, he gives the following quotation. He says, "The distinctions or differences between Virginians, Pennsylvanians, New Yorkers, and New Englanders are no more. I am not a Virginian, but an American." Think about that. The distinctions are no more. Come together right now over me. And that is essentially what's happening. Patrick Henry is saying, I am not a Virginian, but an American. And many of the 55 are feeling the same way. They're not putting their colony's interests first, but they're putting American interests first. And that is going to be super important here because in order to be successful, the colonies are going to have to unite rather than to focus on their own selfish interests. So that's why it's going to be an important movement going forward. Unity is taking shape. Unity is beginning to happen. But you know what else is happening? Is this. America is coming together. It is uniting. And the colonists are So we're getting unity. We're getting people that are proud to be Americans, not looking at themselves as Englishmen, but now as Americans. But regardless, moving forward, on Friday, you guys were active members of the First Continental Congress, and you guys had to make some decisions to move American colonies forward as they try to decide how they're going to protest the intolerable acts. So there was decisions everywhere from declaring independence to starting a war to just obeying the laws and paying for the tea and sending petitions and boycotting British goods. There were 8 or 9 different options for you guys to contend with and to analyze and to do pros and cons and rank and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, this is what the Continental Congress decided. The first thing, which many of you guys thought was totally ineffective, they're going to draft a statement of grievances known as a declaration and resolves. But again, this is not just a statement of grievances or a petition from one person. It's not from one town. It's not from one colony, but it's from 12 of 13 colonies. So this isn't any old petition. This is a petition that's going to carry a lot of weight, and it's going to show the king and parliament that the colonies are united, which is something to be fearful of. The second thing they're going to do, which is going to be something that a lot of you guys thought was very effective, and you picked this as one of your top options, just because boycotts are what has hurt Great Britain in the past. So, of course, it's going to continue to hurt Great Britain. But the only difference is now we're going to create community groups known as the Association to oversee this complete boycott of British trade. So this one is a little bit different in nature because the people are going to police each other to make sure that everybody is strictly abiding by the boycott. Now, it's also a total boycott. So no British goods could be brought in or used. So that is a non-importation. So we're not going to import British goods. Non-consumption. We're not going to consume British goods. And lastly, non-exportation. This is the one that is really sacrificing the colonial economy here. No colonial goods could be sold to Britain, right? So Great Britain always provided a market for colonial raw materials, but according to this complete boycott, no exportations. Now, if these two things don't work, this is your break glass in case of emergency option. And that is the endorsement of the Suffolk Resolve. Suffolk is a town in Massachusetts, and they're the ones that propose this. But they say, hey, listen, if these things aren't going to work, we need to be ready to fight. So we need to start forming militia groups. And a militia group is not a professional fighting force. It's a bunch of townspeople, a bunch of farmers and clerks and merchants and barkeepers and silversmiths and blacksmiths that are going to pick up guns and fight. So the colonists are going to prepare for war. They're going to stockpile muskets. They're going to stockpile rifles. They're going to get their hands on as much ammunition as possible. And they're going to train, not professionally, but doing the best that they can, learning how to shoot, march, ram their bayonet into things of that nature. Also, this is where you get the birth of the Minutemen, people that claim we're ready to fight in a moment's notice, right? And that's very popular in Massachusetts, around Boston specifically. But the colonists, as you can see, are endorsing the Suffolk Resolves, which is telling them to prepare for war. But they're not doing this in private. They're doing it in public. So news is going to travel across the Atlantic Ocean to King George III. And this is how he feels about it.
You want a war? I'll give you a war! I was born for it!
So as you can tell, King George III is pretty serious, and he is tired of what's going on in New England specifically. So he says the New England colonies are in a state of rebellion, and blows must decide who will control America. So what does that mean? It means he's sending even more troops in to occupy Boston and to shut it down and take it over. And he's also replacing civilian Governor Thomas Hutchinson with Thomas Gage. All right, General Thomas Gage. Meet the new governor of Massachusetts. And Boston is now officially locked down under what is known as martial law. All right, so we now have a military commander calling the shots in Boston. And his first order is to shut down the rebellion. So this is Gage's plan to disarm the rebellion in Boston before it even begins. I want you to take a moment to think about how would you shut down a rebellion before it even began? Well, this is how Gage decides to disarm the rebellion, and it makes perfect sense. It's a two-part plan to stop the rebellion before it begins. One, he wants to take away the weapons of the colonial militiamen, because remember, I said they're stockpiling weapons and ammo and rifles and muskets, etc., and they're storing them in a town of Concord about 20 miles outside of Boston. The British know exactly where these weapons are because they received intelligence about where the militiamen are keeping their weapons. In other words, they have spies that are reporting back on the Patriot actions. Also, another way to kill off this rebellion before it begins is not only you take their weapons away, but you take their leaders away. So, two leaders in particular, Sam Adams, we know as the creator of the Sons of Liberty and constant thorn in the side of the British, and also John Hancock comes onto the stage, who's a wealthy colonial merchant and smuggler in Boston. Also, the financier of the Sons of Liberty. He basically pays for everything that the Sons of Liberty do. So, Gage's plan is to cut down these weapons, take the weapons, and take out the leaders. So he's going to rally over 700 soldiers and send them out on a midnight march on April 18th, late April 18th into the wee hours of the 19th. And their job is to secretly march to Concord and destroy these weapons, and on the way to stop in Lexington and to capture Sam Adams and John Hancock. Now, how does Gage possess such intelligence? Well, I already said he's got spies. Well, guess who else has spies in and around Boston watching everything the British troops are doing? You guessed it, the colonists, right? The Bostonians. They know everything that's taking place. And they are known as the Committee of Safety. And their job is to watch British troop movements and watch for anything irregular. And this Committee of Safety is led by three men: Paul Revere, William Dawes, and Samuel Prescott. So when Dr. Joseph Warren spotted this irregular British movement, he lets these men know to go alert the countryside and let them know that the British were out to suppress the rebellion and capture their weapons and capture their leaders. So the Committee of Safety's job now is to tear out into the countryside and let Adams and Hancock know that the British were coming, and to tell the countryside to get themselves ready for a potential standoff with the British. So I now bring to you, in all its epicness and movie glory, the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere.
regulars are coming, sir, now.
Send for Dawes and Revere.
Both men, sir.
We'll send one by land and one by sea.
But the regulars are coming by sea, sir.
If there were other routes, we would take them too. God willing, one will make it.
Dr. Warren requires you.
You won't be gone long, will you?
It may be a while.
Daddy.
Revere.
What route are the regulars taking?
By your path, Paul, by sea.
And 2 lanterns. And if I do not make the passage, the light will. Charlestown will not be caught sleeping.
We need more than Charlestown.
And we shall have it.
I need Larkin's horse.
What are they doing? They plan to take Messrs. Hancock and Adams in Lexington and to destroy our weapons in Concord. And they're sending 700 armed men to do it as we sleep. They mean to crush us.
We'll be lost.
Not even the king can make 700 men march as fast as a single man can ride.
I found you. Are you headed to Lexington?
Immediately.
I just came from there. I passed 10 English soldiers along the way.
Is it too late?
They won't move until they're all together. These are guards.
Maybe we should talk to them again.
Why? Because they've ignored our every plea? Or should we wait until they've destroyed our only hope of resistance? See if that sweetens their tempers.
I don't know that anyone will be able to pass the road to Lexington tonight.
Another rider was sent by the other route, over the Boston Neck.
Sir, your horse is ready.
Yeah! Yeah! The redcoats are coming! The redcoats are coming! Wake up your men and bring them to Lexington at once! Wake up! The regulars are coming! Wake up and be a free man or liberty dies tonight! Redcoats are coming! The redcoats are coming!
What's that racket? What assassins come in the middle of the night?
Regulars.
Look at the gun.
They're coming for you. Right now? As we speak. Which way was he sent? Over the Boston. Open it.
Dawes.
Hancock. Thought you were taken.
Revere.
Heaven smiles on us tonight.
It's the morning that concerns me.
They haven't reached Concord yet, but I believe we shall.
I'll go this way. Godspeed. You! Get off your damned horse! Enough. Sir, may I crave your name?
Paul Revere.
You're Revere? You're from Boston, then? Do not be afraid. We should not harm you. We simply want some information. What time did you leave Boston?
At 11 o'clock. and I've alarmed the countryside. There will be 500 Americans waiting for you shortly.
Mind what you say, Revere. Mind what you say. If there is a single word untrue, I'll kill you.
You have pulled me from my horse in the middle of the night. For what reason, I am not sure. But I have no reason to lie to you.
Rubble to rocks. You may take 1 or 2 shots at us, but we will deal with you simply.
You are mistaken.
One of us certainly is.
Sergeant, take his horse. We'll see what's happening in Lexington. Why are you doing this?
You love our industry, which fattens your pocketbooks. But is that what it means to be an American? Why do I rise before dawn to go to my work? And why do I go to bed only long after the sun has set? I do not labor for you. I labor for freedom. Nothing but freedom is worth this price. And that is why tonight we are going to show you how much we are willing to pay. I am willing to give my life. I have surrendered it many times over tonight. And I am willing to surrender it as many times more as God allows I may.
What the hell was that?
A signal, sir. From people who do not like you to more of the same.
Damn it! I don't have time for this. Let's go.
Paul Revere, William Dawes, Samuel Prescott. They made it to Sam Adams and John Hancock, but will they make it to Concord in time so the colonists can move their weapons that they've put together for armed rebellion? Find out tomorrow in the swamp.